Alright, so this is a long video, so make sure to put on your favorite soundtrack and lower the volume a bit in your music player. And today we're going to create this part, and this part, and also the screw and the pattern here. So when I first started modeling, this was in 2010. For about 6 or 7 years, I had this really bad habit of trying to always perfect the models I was creating, even the hard surface models like a Revolver in this instance. The thing about hard surface models is that their only purpose is to serve as a visualization object for rendering, or as a normal map baking source for low poly models. So as long as the surface looks good, the model is fine. You don't really need to perfect it with only quads in it and all that stuff, because as long as it looks good, it fulfills its purpose in every way. And for those first 6 or 7 years, I just wasted so much time just trying to perfect these models for no reason, because there's no actual gain you get from it in regards to the purpose of the model. Because if it has triangles like this, and it looks like this, or if I remove these triangles completely and there's like no issues there in the topology, I haven't really gained any visual improvement in that effort. So it's actually just a waste of time. But if you really want to do it, you can remove triangles in 2 different ways. One of them is to continuously merge them until you get to like an edge. So here we have a mirrored model like this, so there's like an end here. The thing about merging a triangle, or removing a triangle by merging an edge, is that we are just moving the triangle further down. If I take this edge and I merge it, I'm taking this quad and removing one vertex from it. So now that also becomes a triangle. So if I don't have an exit, like a mirrored edge or a hole in the model, I will never really get rid of this triangle. But since I have an edge here, I can remove it like so. And also this one I can remove by combining, like so. The other solution, see, we have another triangle here. Another solution is to insert an edge. Then we don't really need to merge way downwards, like we did before. So can you just double tap G to move the vertices along the surface, the face of the surface. And also this triangle up here, we can just combine these downwards at center. There's also a triangle up here we can remove. Just Shift R to just repeat the command. Alright, so this it's not a really pretty topology, but again, it doesn't, you can clean us up if you want to, but you don't really gain anything from doing it anyways. Because the curvature here is good enough, I don't really feel the need to make this curvature much more refined. So now we can start on something more simple again. We can just go here, go into orthographic view of the right orthographic by pressing num 3, and shift click or shift right click to put the cursor in the middle there. Scale this on, and whenever we scale a model or an object down like this, we should always apply the scale, because the modifiers and every tool we use are relative to the scale parameters down here. So this is a pretty simple shape, and there are different ways of going about this. You can, for instance, use the spin tool down there to spin the mesh around. But in my opinion, it's a great tool and all that, but for this purpose, it's easier just to insert the edges as needed, or extrude and insert as needed, and subdivide. Then you get about the curvature you're looking for anyways. It's just a lot more effort to do it with the spin tool in this case, but the spin tool is really good for other purposes. I just removed the face at the top here, so it becomes a hole, and then it kind of gets sharpened at the top here without me having to add more edges like so. And I don't really need the top portion of this this trigger. And yeah, we can probably just mirror this object actually, because it's going to be symmetrical anyways. So we can just go to modifiers and mirror, and have the mirror on top before the subdivision modifier. And we can enable clipping, select all these edges. Now the edge goes around the entire mesh. Scale that in X into 0, so it becomes goes into the middle, and just move these vertices until they snap into the middle. And a clipping option will merge these vertices for us. So double tap G to activate the slide tool. And then we just remove the top face here again. And move this right there. We can probably just extrude this a bit so there's less chance of edge visibility when we start rotating this object. We can also see over here that the trigger has a curve that goes inwards as it approaches the top and attaches to the revolver on top. And this is already quite thin here, so we can just take these faces and pull them outwards a bit. Then we achieve sort of the same curvature as on the illustration. So now we can work on this portion and create a bit of a more sharper edge around the trigger. And we can use the inset tool with pressing I on the keyboard. We get the inset tool and just create some more edges in. You can also do something similar here, and we can actually also scale this in a bit, just S and X, and take it in a bit. We will then get a slight curve moving around the trigger here as well. And then control left click, and it will select the shortest path to the next selection. And here we can just insert an inset as well. Maybe we can actually go up here and do it there as well. And then again, move up here and remove this, and activate the snap tool with the shift tab and make sure it has the vertices selected and also project onto itself. We can then snap this edge to the vertices up there. Also do the same thing here. And we could probably have done it different. We can probably just add insert edge like this as well. Both of these work just fine. And disable the snap tool because I don't need it anymore, and just position this like so. So now we have a bit more defined trigger. Next we need a hole in the body of the revolver, so we can insert another edge here, and it doesn't seem to mess up the general surface smoothness, so this should be fine. You could probably move this out a bit, and also we can probably activate this on cage tool so we can more easily see where the edges are. But it's good to put this back on and off again, because this is like the working topology, so this is what when you want to grab. I can put this up here and I can activate this, and it won't be as bad in this view. But still, it will work somehow, but I think it's good to manage just where the edges actually are once in a while. Alright, so we're gonna insert this hole right there. I could probably just have extruded this instead. So we're just gonna extrude along the yeah, I think we're just gonna extrude it along the Z axis like it does by default. I'm gonna deactivate this again to see what's going on here. And I don't mind this. There's something here we need to fix. This doesn't look very good. And we can either just increase the subdivision level so it becomes smooth, or we can insert more edges around this area ourselves. And the easiest way to do this would just to increase the subdivision level. We don't really need to change the topology much more when we do that. And I think this looks okay. I'm just going to move this a little bit further over there, like so. And whatever goes up on there is not really visible to the average user, so I won't bother spending more time fixing that. It's all about managing your time. You don't have exactly an infinite amount of time in your life, and you should just try to balance these out. Okay, to make this a bit more readable, I'm gonna enable optimal display, and also on this one, and also activate the X-ray in the wireframe view, so I can kind of see through the model a bit more. Alright, so right there, I'm gonna make sure the cursor is in the 0 of the X, because I want it dead in the center of the scene. So then I move the cursor straight to the middle of the scene in the X. And then here, or this is actually on the right, I'm gonna have it out there. Should actually be on the body itself. So that's my mistake. Alright, so about right there, I'm gonna insert another cube, scale it down, and again, I'm gonna make sure I remember to apply the scale before I start actually manipulating it. So it used to be 0.075. I'm gonna apply the scale just so that the tools are working properly. Alright, and then I'm just gonna make the basic shape of this this tool here. I'm gonna make sure I'm actually outside on the body itself of the revolver, like so. I'm not sure how big this actually is in the I'm not sure how big this is in depth, but it probably should have it has to have a bit of a width to it, so you can easily flick it with your thumb. Alright, and there's like a curve down there as well, so I'm just going to select the front edge there, put it a bit further out like that. And down there, we're gonna take that up there. It's kind of hard to see what I'm doing now. You have to get used to the wireframe view to understand what's going on. But basically taking the further back edge right there and just extending it and pushing it back like so. This portion as well needs to be about up there. Then I insert an edge there and try to create the curvature. We see, oh, this actually has to go out there as well. But yeah, we're gonna see if we can create this curvature at the top first, and then we're gonna take the bottom ones, move them back, and apply a subdivision surface to see what we got. And I don't really need the back faces on this model. So we can remove these, because we won't see the back side of this object anyways, and when we remove these, the edges around here becomes a lot more sharper. So it's good economically, like performance economically wise, it's nice, and also it makes it easier for me to model the actual mesh here. Alright, it's pretty sharp around the top here, so I'm gonna insert a edge loop right here and put it up there. And there's a screw hole right there, so I can insert an edge there as well. And I can hold Shift and Control and B and extrude. I will then get a like I will bevel the vertices or the vertex. And here I will just use the loop tools again, just create a circle, right click, the loop tools plugin, which you should activate if you haven't not already, and just create a circle, and it becomes a perfect circle. And the screw is about over there, so I'm gonna move all these over here. Am I messing up the topology now? Okay, I was not in the orthographic view. Alright, so it's about there. And then I will just extrude this inwards a bit where the screw hole will be. And insert some edges there to tighten it up a little bit. And then I got a hole. And this should be perfectly cylinder. Or very close at least. Alright, go back into the other view, and the hole is way too small right now, and it wouldn't hurt to have the hole smaller, like it would just be a smaller screw, but if I increase it too much, I mean the amount I have to increase it to actually be as big as the hole itself, the edges start extending past the border of the actual mesh here. And the way I can get around this is just to insert more edges, like so. But I already had an n-gon up here. This is already an n-gon, and I just insert more edges now, so it becomes just more n-gons. Or not more n-gons, it's still an n-gon, but there's more edges to work on inside that n-gon. And again, an n-gon is just a face with more than 4 vertices on it. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vertices. So we probably should fix that in a moment. But for now we can just select these edges again and circle. We can activate this mode again so we can see the edges easier. And again, right click, loop tools and circle, and just highlight these edges as well. And Shift R to run the command again, which is circle. And up here we need the bevel. Like so. And we can also inset these faces so that the edge becomes a bit more sharper still. We could then just remove, we could probably just remove this one. So like just to remove those, we don't really need them. And now we have some edges we can connect here, and there, and there, and there as well. But we can also insert more edges here, so we get more topology, more edges to work with as well. Then we end up with a triangle there. Yeah, let's just go for the easiest way first and see if we need more triangles later, we can insert them as needed. So now we have basically a place here where this there's a loop going around this circle, which is kind of locked within itself. So that's good. So we can now we can really easily control the sharpness of the circle. So we are gonna take the circle. Now we have more geometry on it and stuff, so it becomes a bit more tighter. We can increase this in size, and it actually becomes a lot more bigger without having to break the borders out here. So we can go back into the wireframe to see the hole. It's about this big, and that's good enough for me. It's not really very pretty topology here, or the edge flow here is not really good on the modeling mesh, but it looks fine. And yeah, I scaled this hole wrong. I did not exclude the x-axis, so when I scaled it earlier, I kind of scaled it up in the x-axis as well, which is not ideal. But we can fix this by going to top view, activating the vertex and projectile to itself, and just snap this to these vertices up there. Then it becomes flat again. So this hole might be a bit too deep now. So I'm gonna control plus and minus, increases and decreases the selection. Turn off the snap tool with Shift Tab again and take it a bit further up. Alright, so now we have the hole. And now the reference image has these tiny spikes. So there is a couple of ways to approach this problem, and it depends on what your final product is. Like if it's a low poly model, which is the end result, you can either make these on the model itself here. So you actually create pseudo-physical spikes on this particular model itself, so they are actually on the high poly model. But that takes a lot of time and effort. You can either model them yourself on the model them on the mesh itself, or you can use a displacement map. But both of these methods take some time. But if you're gonna use the high poly model as a visualization model, then yeah, you should have them on the model itself. But if you're gonna have them on a low poly, which you're gonna put into a video game, for instance, you don't really need them on the high poly model here. You can just create those with textures on a low poly inside Substance Painter or Designer or whichever program you happen to use, like Photoshop with Quixel. And that The benefit of using textures is that they are easy to change. If you want to make changes to the pattern, for instance, on these spikes, if you made them on the high poly model, it just takes a lot more time. But if you're using textures, they're much more easier to adjust and iterate on, so you can more easily vary the appearance of this knob. Okay, so before we do that part, let's just make sure we have the basic shape of this knob. We're going to insert an edge there to tighten up the curve going up there, and also the same down here to make it a bit more similar to our reference. You can probably just take all of these faces and move this around a bit. And then these edges, with them a bit out, like so. It doesn't have to be exact perfect with the reference image either. I mean, the image itself is not really perfectly orthographical either. This is taken with like 50mm, 70mm lens. You have some perspective here, so some detail are a bit skewed. So we don't need to follow it 100% because it's not really 100% with the orthographic camera we are actually using. Alright, so now we probably have a bit more similar shape to the actual knob. It's actually a bit I'm just gonna have it like that. So to start on these dots back here, we're gonna go to the side and insert a cube, and to that cube we're gonna add a couple of array modifiers. One for the y-axis, one for the z-axis. And these arrays are gonna make sure we can just edit one cube and it will be reflected on all the others. We can also add a subdivision modifier with Control 2 on the keyboard and delete these, and we can go into the array and select merge. It will then merge the edges within a certain distance from each other. So then we can shrink this down, and then we get about some decent spikes for that knob. We can just put that into place. And when we have about the alignment, we can just increase the count until it covers the entire knob itself, because we're going to use a boolean to cut out the ones we don't need. And we want the shape to follow the knob itself as shown in the back here. So we can go to our knob object and select these faces and press Shift D to copy them, and then press the right click button and P on the keyboard and separate by selection. This selection now becomes its own object, which we can take out a bit and select all objects or the faces and extrude along the normal until it extends inwards. And we are then gonna go to this object and might as well apply the arrays, and then add a boolean modifier and select the cube 7 object here, and then select intersect. And now the shape of that cube, which we put as an object as a boolean intersection, cuts off the object by factor of its own border or its geometry. We can also hide the surface of this object by going to the object properties and down to viewport display and putting that to wire. If we still want to move this around a bit, we can do that. So now we have some edges that are simply just cut off like so. And one way you can fix this is to go into edit mode on the dots themselves and select the dots that cause the problem. So it's this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then we press Ctrl+ to extend the selection and go into Control V menu for the vertices tools and smooth the vertices a couple times. This then become a lot more softer, and also we can go into the boolean object and make sure it's a bit more sharp down to the end. And now I'm getting a bit, it's now I changed it a bit, so I don't really want quite that appearance there. So I'm gonna select these faces, take it a bit further down again. And do the same thing at the bottom. And once I'm okay with the appearance, I'm just going to apply the boolean to the dots. I can just remove that object, and then I will go and sculpt out the rest of the problems with the smooth brush. So just go into sculpt mode, hold shift, and start painting. You can also turn off the subdivision for now. Then go into edit mode and normalize the normal skin with Shift N. Then those artifacts should disappear as well. And now it's only a matter of just fine-tuning the appearance of this thing, but it has an okay base. You just have to clean up the rest. The thing is, it doesn't really need to be perfect either, because it's gonna be really tiny on the screen. It will be about this size at maximum on the screen, so you won't really notice the small issues down here as much. Especially if you see it from this distance, you don't really notice much of the errors down there. And also, real objects are not really perfect either. They are full of production errors in real objects. They're not perfect, so if there is some imperfections in your model, it doesn't really matter too much, as long as you can play it off as a realistic default of production or something like that. So then the last part is the screw in the back. And the easiest way to start creating this is just going to this object and select these faces, and same as before, just Shift D to duplicate, right click to drop, P to separate by selection. And then you can just drag this out, select the faces and extrude them along the normal. And you can delete the back faces, so the edges going down here becomes sharp. And you can insert these faces and also insert an edge loop here. Then that also becomes a bit more sharp. And then we're going to create this pattern going through it. So we can use these edges going through it already to create the patterns. We can just insert another edge loop here. And we're going to do this quick way. There's a complicated way we can create the perfect topology and edge flow and all that stuff to make the perfect screw, but we don't really need it for our purpose because it will just be hidden in a really small detail on the revolver itself, so we won't really notice the small imperfections in it. So we can just bevel that edge, and then it won't be perfectly round anymore, but we can fix that with a tool afterwards. We just have to focus on the pattern we want, so we can just delete those faces and insert a face there and insert the edge there. And we also need an edge out here, just to make sure we are matching the amount of edges going through the model there. So we can bridge these together. We're going to bridge that one, bridge this one, and then we need another edge here to meet the edge coming in there. Then we can just fill this in. And create that face and that face, insert an edge there as well, and fill in those faces. And now I have the basic shape, but it's not, yeah, it's okay. It's but we can also help it a little bit more just by using the loop tools again, creating a circle, and it won't look very pretty, but it actually helps quite a bit on the roundness of the object. And if you feel like tightening this up a bit, you can just insert edge loop here, and you can then put it down to the floor, and you get it a bit more sharp there. So that's an okay screw, and then we can just put it inside the hole again and look at it from a distance to see how far we want it to be. And then that's basically the knob. And again, you can just clean this up more if you want to, that's up to you. So the next part is this thing, so we can just insert a new cube, put it to 0 in X, and this is also a mirrored object or a symmetrical object, so we can just, as soon as we come here, we can just insert an edge loop in the middle, remove the other half, and insert a mirror modifier. We then have it mirrored, and we can just start working on the basic edge flow here. So I want an edge to go around here because I want to be able to control easily the sharpness of this edge on the top. Also at the bottom here, I want an edge to go in this direction and also up here. So we can just start working on the basic shapes here. We can go into mirror mode and start placing these. So I want an edge up here so I can sharpen that area, and also I want an edge to go down here and move around the curvature. So I'm going to select that face and extrude it down here. And because I'm in orthographic mode right now, it's a bit more easier to rotate it into place. And I'm just going to insert edges wherever I need them to get the curvature, controlling the curvature more easily. And that's that looks fine, so that will loop back over there. And then I want another edge down here. I can't remember the hotkey for inserting edges anymore. There it is. Okay, so control right click and then you just extrude to the cursor, wherever your cursor is. That's pretty handy. So yeah, I can just delete that face and just work with these vertices down here. So I'm just extruding the edge, going down there, trying to follow the pattern up here as well, so I can easily connect these faces together and take it down there. So now I can go here and make sure yeah, that needs to be removed. I gotta remove these. And then I can just press F here. And now, since this is a mirrored object, I don't really need to worry much about the other side, because it will just be mirrored anyways. Oh, there's some errors here as well. This needs to be removed. Any more issues? That's a face right. Nope. I think now it's fine. Yeah. Alright, so just continuing on this object. Just extrude this down. Make sure I'm in orthographic view. And I probably want a face going over here, so might as well merge these. A bit less stretching. And here, I'm just gonna grab this one, press F. Same thing here, press F. And here's a face that should be removed here as well. And finally, there. Enable clipping so they stick to the axis. And there we have the basic shape. So to start working on the width of this object, we can just go into edit mode and maybe just isolate these two objects. We can just see those, and into wireframe, grab in maybe this face, enabling proportional editing, and start moving this in. Use the scroll wheel to adjust the area effect. Maybe I'll take it that one as well. Pull it a bit in. I don't want it to be too small either. Luckily, it would seem like it would easily break. And that's okay for the form itself. So now I can just disable the proportional editing and adjust it more carefully until I get the shape I want. Also, I can enable the subdivision modifier. Maybe just smooth that as well, so I can see how it is there. And since I have these edges going around now, I can very easily tighten up the edge going around there. Probably don't want it to be as thick on the bottom there. So I can go back into wireframe, pick that edge, and enable proportional editing again with O, and shove it in a bit along the x-axis. All right, so that's actually a bit. I think that's a bit too small, actually. Probably want it to be a bit wider. I can't really make up my mind about this one just yet, so let's just keep like that for now and work on the details. So with this edge I can sharpen up the ending over here. I can also make a compromise. If I want it to be quite sharp going down but smoother as it comes up here, I can just deselect all these edges and select only these. And slide these with, gotta disable the proportional editing again, and double tap G and slide these in. Then I can still preserve some of the smoothness of the curve here. Then we need to cut in the hole in the revolver so we can go back to the body. And I think I will disable that thing, and here we go. I don't think inserting that edge causes an issue in the revolver in general. If it would, I would probably just go in here and remove these faces. So the top part and the bottom part is no longer directly connected. Or it will be connected here, but I could probably find some way to cut it here because there's going to be another part coming here afterwards. So we got something we can cut with, and we can move these vertices further down if needed afterwards. And it needs to be cut down there, so we can remove these. Or we could have extruded them inwards along the normal. And insert an edge loop on the inside so it's a bit more sharp in there. And if we need to sharpen up these edges, we have a convenient loop here. So we can just go like that. We can also insert another loop there and one loop there. So now we just got to look over the model again to see if that messes up any of the surfaces, but it seems to be fine. We can now hide the rest and see what's going on here. I'm going to disable the subdivision modifier so I can see what's going on better. And we need to move these faces a bit further down the model. And there was some unfortunate stretching here, so we can move these faces as well. Grab these, move them a bit back. And look at the form of the Revolver again and see if that messes up the curve. And I think I would like to fix these here again. I don't have the exact form I want. So I can grab these edges or these faces and see if I can pull these outward a bit. You can also use the smooth tool. Just select the vertices and Control V and smooth. It will then kind of slide them along the face in a convenient way. Most of the time, sometimes not so convenient. But it's it can be useful to just try it out. You might be able to save some time using it. You can see it actually creates a nice curve on the face there. You can also just use Shift R to apply the command, so if you have used the smooth tool once, it will just reapply quite easily. Yes, I think yeah, that curve is a bit more better. I think I will still like to put this a bit further outwards. But we can go back and fix those minor details later. So now we just need to fix this hole. So we can go into edit mode again, Control click to select the path, go into wireframe, maybe increase the selection and just deselect these. And move it all in the x-axis inwards. Then we can drop these at the bottom. And move the rest in a bit more. And not really sure where this is mechanically placed on the revolver itself. But I'm gonna move the cursor, 3D cursor, into the 0 on the X, and just move the origin to the cursor. You can also find this menu and the object, set origin, and then you have these here. And you can also just right click this and add to quick favorites, and then it's inside your queue menu all the time. That's a bit more convenient in my opinion. And then when this our firearm will shoot, it will be like that. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't clip into the top there. And I probably need to find a blueprint of how these are actually modeled in total afterwards. But for now, for demonstration purposes, this is okay for now. So the next part is to sharpen up this area if you want it. If you don't, you can leave it as is. But if you want to sharpen it up, just insert a edge loop here and also an edge loop here. And this causes some tightenings on the curvature there, so we need to fix that. Also down here, this needs to be fixed. So this is convenient that it meshed up to the hole down here as well. That was a happy accident, but for now we can just select these edges moving all the way up here. And also these ones, and apply the smoothing tool. We can then put this a bit downwards here as well. And we still need to do some sharpness correction there. Okay, that's close to fixed down there. And then there was these ones up here. We don't want to lose the curve here of the base model, but we can probably try to fix the appearance there by moving this around. And that looks okay. So that's our hole, and now we have a couple of n-gons in our model, and it causes some issues with the faces here. And because we had we incremented the bevel ones, we have convenient places to connect it to the surrounding environments here, or surrounding geometry.